Welcome everyone. In this video we are going to be discussing about MACD pullback, and we're only going to be looking at various examples of how a typical MACD pullback looks like. We will try to understand the way we've been always told to trade MACD and the way I personally like to trade MACD. The only thing I look for is pullback in histograms, rather than simply trading every signal that MACD provides. Now obviously we all know that we can either trade MACD using the histogram or using the signal line. The histogram are these little bars in yellow that you see, and the signal line is this red line. Now both of them are components of the MACD system. It works on the zero line. Traditionally we know that if the histogram is below the zero, then you sell in the market. If it's above the zero like this one, you buy in the market. Similarly, when you see the signal line crossing below the zero line, then you sell, and if you see the signal line crossing above, then you buy. In this video we're going to be looking at pullbacks from an intraday perspective. So we're going to be looking at a 30-minute chart, and we're going to be looking at multi-time frame from 5 minutes up to H1. So it's 5, 15, 30 and H1. However, we're going to be looking for pullbacks on the 30-minute time frame. Now here you can see, for simple understanding, I have not used a lot of guppy averages. I'm using a 50 exponential and a 30 exponential. It's for easy understanding of the pullback concept, because we are not going to be focusing more on the main chart, which is the price chart, because we're going to be looking at the MACD here. The MACD is the traditional MACD which you have in your standard MetaTrader 4 platform. When you install it, this is how it looks like. You can change the color codes the way you want. I prefer yellow and red, and this is just the way I like it. You can change the color to whatever you want based on your choice. Here you have the multi-time frame MACD, which shows you 5, 15, 30 and H1. Now what we're going to do is, now we all know that we have been told that when the histogram drops below the zero line, it's basically a sell entry, and when it goes above the zero line, it's a buy entry. Now when I mean pullback, when I say pullback, what I mean is I would like to see price, I would like to see the signal, the histogram below the zero. In case if we are selling, histogram below the zero, signal line below the zero, and you're looking for a pullback. So when I say pullback, what I mean is you like to see histogram trying to go towards the zero line. Now in order to explain this better, I'm going to show you a lot of pullback examples on the 30-minute time frame, but at the same time let me try to explain it a little better. Now please excuse my drawing skills, but just to give you an example, this is your standard zero line of the MACD now, and this is your signal line. By a pullback, what I mean is, now when the signal line crosses the zero line in the upward direction, so technically this point here becomes your buy. Now for me, I would not really place a buy entry here. Rather, I would want to see the signal line come back down, and instead of going below the zero line, it starts moving up. Now this is a pullback. So typically what you would see is that you would see your histogram something like this. You would see your histogram like this, okay, and then from this point you see your histogram slowly trying to push through, and this point here, this is a pullback, and this is where I would like to place my buy entry, right? Now pullbacks, there are some things that I look for. So for example, this is your zero line, right? And when your signal line is crossing, right, the closer it comes to the zero and moves up, the closer it comes to the zero and moves up, the stronger the signal is. Similarly, let's say if you're going down, then you would see the signal line going down, come up, pull back, and start moving down, right? Now, these pullbacks are stronger when they start coming closer to the zero line. Typically, the first pullback is usually the stronger one. When I say first, I mean this is the first time the signal line crossed the zero, it comes, pulls back, this is your first pullback, okay? Then you may see another pullback happening, it comes close to zero and moves up. This is your second pullback. But typically if you're trading, then you would be trading, maybe you will trade your risk percentage, you will be more here, so you will trade a bigger lot here, and then you may want to reduce your lot size at this pullback. Right now, this is about pullback. What is more important is that as and when you start looking at these pullbacks on the MACD, you will see it gets more clear when you look at more and more examples. What I suggest is that you keep your individual index charts open, and you can start looking for pullbacks. Now here, let's say if we look at the euro chart, okay, you can see here, now this is an excellent pullback here, so you can see this is what I mean by a pullback. Now again, as and when I start showing you examples, you would notice that as and when you start looking at this, the more examples you look at, the better you will get at it. And there are some things that you need to do before really placing a trade, but what is more important is that you understand what a pullback really is. Now typically you can see here how the signal line crossed, the histogram crossed first, then the signal line followed, and then here the signal line doesn't really want to go below the zero line. It slowly starts moving up and the histogram starts piercing through the signal line. This is typically a pullback, right? Now what I like to see is that when I'm trading a pullback, I like to see all of these time frames moving in the same direction, right? So even though I'm looking at a pullback in the 30-minute, which itself is strong, but I like to see same direction movement on all these time frames, right? So now this only helps me, gives me the confidence to trade, but primarily please remember your core of the system revolves around this pullback. Now obviously after pullback we look at certain other things like strength and weakness, but then here we are only looking for pullbacks. So this can be a pullback, this can here also be a pullback. Now here, if you notice in this pullback, you can see how price is not really moved that much. So when the pullback happened, you can see price is reacting very nicely to it. So this is a good pullback. But here, if you see, this is a pullback. But when you look at this first bar here, the first histogram when it pierced through the signal line, you can see price has already moved up a bit. Now this is where a lot of times your ATR projection comes into play, because you would want to see if your ATR has moved quite a bit, then you may want to skip the trade. But then otherwise, if you are somebody who's going to be sitting in front of the system, and if you're trading on a 30-minute pullback system, you can always squeeze in some pips in every good pullback, right? So if I just have to quickly go through this chart on 30-minute, and let's see what are the good pullbacks that you have. Now this could also be a good pullback. You can see here it's not really it's crossed a little bit, but then if you can see it's touching the zero line, and it's moved down here. All right, so this could be a pullback. This one here is a pullback. This one here is a pullback on the MACD histogram. You can see some really good pullbacks here. This is a pullback. This one here also a good pullback. Here is a pullback. This one here maybe to some extent. This one here. Now I'm looking at the individual index chart, and I'm looking at pullbacks on the individual index chart on the 30-minute time frame. So this is a pullback here, this is a pullback here. You can see some good pullbacks This is a nice pullback. This also, you can see how it fails and then slowly starts moving down. This is a pullback. So as and when you start looking at these charts, you will slowly understand what I mean by a MACD, a typical MACD histogram pullback. Now, last week again, now I'm looking at the dollar chart, you can see some good pullbacks here. This is one. This is a pullback. This also you can say is a pullback because you can see how the signal line was just not wanting to go below the zero line, and then slowly you see this push up. You can see the histogram piercing through, and then you can see how price starts moving up. Now, what is more important is that once you have identified a good pullback, like for example, this one here is a good pullback, moves down, pushes up, fails to go up the zero, histogram starts piercing through the signal line, pull back towards the downwards direction. Right? This one is a pullback. This one again is a pullback. So we're looking at pullbacks on the index, right? We're looking at the individual index charts and looking at pullbacks on these individual index charts. But what is more important is that if you are looking at these individual charts, right, and you're going through these charts and you're looking for pullbacks, and if you feel that you've spotted a nice pullback on the MACD, right, the next thing you would want to do is to validate that pullback. So typically, let's say if you saw this pullback on the GBP, right, you can see that the pullback is happening. You can see most of your all your time frames are also in the same direction, in the bearish direction. You see a pullback happening. You want to validate this using your power meter. So you would simply go to your power meter tool to see if now, since you're looking at pullback on the 30 minutes, it's mandatory that you see GBP weak from 5 minute to 30 minute. That's something that you want to see. And then the 1 hour, if it's already weak, nothing like it, you can that's like an extra validation. But in case if it's not, but you feel that yes, it is getting weaker and weaker, then that's like getting an extra validation to your entry. So the power meter adds validation to your pullback. So the pullback is the first thing that you're looking for, which is the key concept, and then the power meter will add validation by telling you that yes, pound is weak on multiple time frames. Now, once that happens, here, this is the actual broker that I would be placing my trade on, and here you can see I've created profiles. Now, these are profiles which I've created, which has those the individual pairs which belong to that specific index. Now here, as I can see that I've spotted a pullback on the pound. Okay, now let's say I've spotted a pullback on the pound and I can see that the power meter is also weak. I'm going to go here and I'm going to pull up the profile with all the pound pairs. Now when I pull up the profile with the pound pairs, all the pound pairs will be up, and then I'm only going to be looking for pullbacks on the pound pairs to see if there are any pullbacks. Now the first thing you would notice immediately, you can see a pullback on the euro pound, right? So this is a good pair to trade. You could see pound CHF, another good pair to trade. You can see how there's a pullback on the pound CHF. Not this one. Beautiful pullback on the pound USD. So you have pound USD, you have pound Swiss franc, and you have the euro pound, right? You can see how there's a pullback happening simultaneously on these pairs as well. But and you can see overall, if you look at the pound pairs, just by looking at the histograms, well, you can see that it's overall it is weak, which adds more strength to your trade. You can see the euro pound is up, but all the other pound pairs are weak. Now out of these pound pairs, the best pullbacks are of course the pound USD, you have the pound Swiss franc, and then you have the euro pound. So these are the pairs that you would want to place your trades. Now before placing your trades, of course, what you could possibly do is here, if you're placing the euro pound, and if you feel that the euro pound is a good pullback, or let's say if you feel pound USD is a good pullback, then you can, since it's the pound USD and you know pound is on a pullback, and that's the reason why this pair is also falling, but there's another currency pair which is the dollar. You can go back to see what the dollar is doing. Now this last step here, this is just to add a little more strength to your trade, right? But then this is how you come down to this, to actually determine which is that pair that you would want to trade. Now please remember, when you're looking at pullbacks on these individual index charts, always remember, the closer the signal line comes to the zero line and starts moving up, the stronger the trade is. Second, when you see these pullbacks and when you see these histograms piercing through, you would want to see a nice gradual move. You wouldn't want to see a big spike up. If there's a big spike in price when the pullback happened, you might want to wait for another good pullback to happen. Right now, let's say let's look at something else. Here you can see how the Aussie dollar, you can see here the signal line failed to go up above, price moves down, starts moving, and then you can see slowly how it starts piercing through the histogram here. Right at this point, you will check the currency power meter to see if there's multi-time frame weakness for the Aussie dollar, and if you see that the Australian dollar is weak on multiple time frames, this was on the 30th of April, then you will also want to see how your the multiple time frames are behaving. If you see there's general weakness on all these time frames, this is you could call this a pullback. Then if you feel all of this is valid, if you feel the power meter is also giving you weakness signals, what you will do is you will simply go back. Now we're looking at 30th April. You will simply come here, you will pull up the AUD, right, and this is the 29th April, so we are looking at, was it the 29th or the 30th? So we will look at the 30th of April, and when you start looking at 30th April, here you can see how histogram goes down. There's a pullback, but I will wait. As I said, I want to see it more closer to the zero line. This could be a good one, I'm not saying no, but it's the rule is that you will want to look at all the pairs before you place a decision. You can see here pound AUD, you can see a pullback. Now this is a nice this is a better one here. You can see how this gradually moves down. You can see how price moving down slowly, the histogram slowly piercing through the signal line. So this is a good one. You can see most of the pairs are already going down. You can see AUDUSD already moving down nicely, and then you have the AUD yen. So overall, if you see, all the AUD pairs are negative. You can see how the histogram is below the zero on all the pairs on the 30th of April, which gives you strength, which tells you that the Aussie is weak. And then there are some trades which you could really take with, which would be the pound AUD to some extent. You can take the AUD CAD, which was one of the most beautiful ones. You can see how slowly the histogram starts moving below the signal line, and then you can trade these pairs. If you're looking at some individual pairs, you can, just for some examples of pullbacks, what I recommend you is that you can start scrolling through the charts, right? Start scrolling through the charts, and just keep observing the MACD, and then look at the corresponding price. You would see some correlation in when you see some good decent pullbacks on these individual indexes. So in this video, I just wanted to talk about pullbacks. Just remember that we're looking at the signal line to retest the zero line and then go in the same direction as it was moving. When you see that, you would want to see if the power meter is really in your favor. Then you go up and open your profile for that specific index, and you place your charts accordingly. You could place your trades accordingly. Now here I have, on the light Forex index, I have my 8 individual currencies. So in these 8 individual currencies, you can see pullbacks. If you want to look at pullbacks, what I would suggest is that you can Go back in time. You can go maybe the last 2 months to see which index has given some good pullbacks, and then you can open up the profiles for that specific currency and then see how the currency pairs have reacted. So for example, if you look at this one here, 27th March, this is a nice pullback. 27th of March. If I go to the Aussie pairs, this is the Aussie group, which is already open. Let's say if I have to go now, this one here is also a nice pullback, but I'm not sure on the 9th of April which it could either be the AUD moving the pair or the CHF because of a pullback, but you can always go back and cross check. Okay, this is the 27th of March. Now if you see, it's had a nice move down, but let's see which currency pair would have given some good pullback trade. So you could see that the Aussie dollar on the 27th March, there was a nice pullback. This is the Aussie USD. Let's see the Aussie yen. Aussie yen, and we're looking at the 27th March. I'm sure we would have had at least 1 or 2 trades which have been good. So you have one here. Aussie yen was a good pullback trade. Let's look at something else on the 27th March to see which one would have given you a very clear trade. Again, you have the GBPUSD, a good pullback trade. 27th March. Now we're looking at the Euro AUD chart. This is the 27th March for Euro AUD. So we had the AUD CHF, we had AUD yen with some good pullback entries. Let's have a look at the AUD CAD as well. You can see not very great pullback on the AUD CAD, but then you can see overall on this day the all Aussie pairs were generally weak. Now that's what I'm trying to say, that when you look at a pullback on a specific currency, what is more important is to go ahead and open the individual group and check which are the currency pairs which are giving you a nice pullback, and then trade in the direction of the pullback. So a pullback typically is a retracement in histogram, and you see the signal line moving towards the zero but fails to cross the zero line and then tends to move in the same direction as the previous direction. Okay, I will discuss more examples in the next video. Thank you.